Officials said the 68-year-old woman was barely alive after the shocking attack and died in an ambulance on her way to the Nile Hospital in Hurghada on Friday. Disturbing footage shows the sea turning red with blood as the woman tries to swim away, and witnesses scream in horror from a nearby pier. A floating device is thrown into the water in the hope of pulling her closer to shore, but it lands far short. It is believed a mako shark attacked the Austrian tourist, who could not be resuscitated by the emergency responders. It remains unclear how she was able to get to the beach. The Egyptian authorities have now closed off a stretch of the Red Sea coastline for 3 days, banning all sea activities including diving, snorkeling, windsurfing, and kite sailing. Men on the pier threw a floating device to the woman and tried to save her. Ooh, wow. Okay. The sea turned red with blood as the swimmer was attacked close to the shore. Okay, I can see a little bit of red right there. That's what happens. Witnesses watching horror as the shark attacks the woman. That's crazy. They're just watching. An ambulance arrives at the beach after the horrific shark attack. Shark attacks are relatively rare. Oh my god, this is what I'm talking about. Shark attacks are relatively rare in Egypt's Red Sea coastal region. In 2020, a young Ukrainian boy lost an arm and an Egyptian tour guide a leg in an attack. In 2010, a spate of attacks killed one European tourist and maimed several others off Sharm el-Sheikh on the Sinai Peninsula. So this is what I'm talking. I brought this up because it's like, well, first and foremost, they're saying it's rare. The woman was an Austrian, and animals are super smart. Animals don't really bit her leg and arm off. She did it. Okay. So how was she in the water? So she's just swimming in the water. Yeah. Animals, my whole point is this, animals can feel energy. They don't attack. Maybe they do, but like I said, it's rare. This is 2022. The last one happened in 2020. 2020. And a leg and attack. He lost an arm and leg, but he didn't pass away. This lady passed away from her injuries because she was 68 years old. So it was fatal, you know? And what I'm saying is, it's the signs of the times, you know? Sharks attacking people. It's sign of, one, global warming, sign of nature attacking, tourists coming too close to nature, thinking they own places, and more stuff like this is gonna happen in the Egypt. Africa. Egypt is in Africa, on the red, and she's Austrian. Well, let's look at what Austrians did. I don't like when I search something and it's something else. Show me what I was searching for. I'm trying to think if Austria is racist or not, basically. Because it looks like it's the karma. Okay, Austria. Okay, well, it's close to Egypt. But let's look history of Austria. Let's see if we can find any significance to any evidence. Austria was dominated by the House of Habsburg and the House of Habsburg. When Emperor Francis dissolved the Holy Roman Emperor, Austria became the Austrian Emperor and was also part of the German Confederation until the Austro-Parisian War of 1866. When was Austria started? July 27th. See, the world is big. There's a lot of places in the world that you don't know about history, that you don't know about. It's interesting. I like learning different things just because there's so much history to learn. Like alternate history. Why is there alternate history? What is the truth? What is the truth? Nobody knows. Let's see, Austria slavery. When did Austria end slavery? In 1811, prohibited slavery or serfdom in the hereditary land significantly. Were there African slaves in Austria? It is difficult to generalize from such materials, and the second half can only state obvious conclusions. Most were slaves and were forced to come to Austria. Little difference can be found between slaves, prisoners of war, and servants, and some limited freedom and rights for such individuals were only possible. And some limited freedom and rights. Little difference can be found between slaves, prisoners of war, and servants, and some limited freedom and rights for such individuals were only possible. Okay, so only limited freedom and rights were possible for people in that time. Sad. Who invented slavery? You could literally do a whole podcast on just Google searches. Because when you search something, something else comes up. What is a black Australian? See, I saw this movie. Everybody should see it. It's called Rabbit Proof Fence. It talks about Aboriginals in Australia. Okay, African Australians refers to Australians who were born on the African continent and migrated to Australia, or who have or had an immediate ancestor who made such a migration. The thing about Australia is white people came into Australia and killed a whole bunch of the Aboriginals and moved them out of their land. It's really sad. It's a lot of people, 25 million. So yeah, Aboriginals are various indigenous peoples of the Australian mainland and many of its islands, such as Tasmania. What race? Genetic studies have revealed that Aboriginal Australians largely descended from an Eastern Eurasian population wave and are most closely related to other Oceanians, such as Melanesians, Oceanians, Oceany, like a American, Oceanian. How do you say this word?
Oceania.
Oceania?
Oceania.
Oceania.
Oceania. Oceania. Oceania.
Oceania. Oh no, Oceania, Oceanian.
Places.
What did Australia do to Aboriginal? This is it. Between 1910 and 1970, government policies of assimilation led to between 10 and 33% of Aboriginal Australian children being forcefully removed from their homes. These stolen generations were put in adoptive families and institutions and forbidden from speaking their native languages. This is what I'm talking about. They do this to everybody. Like, why do they do this? African people, they do this. There's so much history that you don't know. Does Aboriginal show up in DNA? This means Aboriginal ancestors can only be reliable can only be reliably detected through direct maternal or paternal lines. The only two companies to offer Aboriginal tests rely on short tandem repeat. Where does Aboriginal DNA come from? Aboriginal Australians and Papuanians later diverged 37,000 years ago, long before the physical separation of Australian and New Guinea. Some 10,000 years ago, these people coming from mainland Asia and traveling to Australia were the ancestors of most, if not all, modern-day Australians. Coming from the mainland Asia. How did Aboriginals survive? They lived in small communities and survived by hunting and gathering. The men would hunt large animals for food, and women and children would collect fruits, plants, and berries. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island communities only used the land for things that they needed: shelter, water, food, and weapons. They used the land, you see that? For things that they needed only. People that use the land these days for things that they don't need, like these palm trees. Why do you need that? Oh, it's for the aesthetic. It's for feng shui. But you don't need it.